Good morning. Delighted to have our latest guest on Proper Tea with OBI, ex-Sale and England legend, apparently, rugby player Mark Cueto. Mark, thanks for coming on. How have you been over the last 4 to 6 weeks?
No, I've been all right. Bizarrely, been pretty busy. I think the first couple of weeks of the lockdown, everyone sort of shut down the hatchet, as it were, and spending a bit more time at home and having a bit more time with the kids. But if I'm being honest, I never thought the day had, but I'm probably looking forward to getting back into the office at some point.
How's it all been at home with the kids and school working and homework and all that sort of stuff?
It's not easy. You know what it's like, mate. You're in a slightly different position with James. He's a year up, isn't he? So he's passed all his entry exams. He knows what school he's going to next year. Whereas, as you know, Max, my eldest, is in year 5. So this period in his sort of school life was really important, getting ready for the entry exams for Alti Grammar in September. So it's a little bit of a disaster without sort of being negative, because ultimately you want them in school where they're getting the best teaching and learning in preparation to take the exams in September. But it is what it is, and we're trying to do our best. And the kids have been good, to be fair. They're in a little routine, and I don't think they almost don't understand, really, do they? It's almost an extension of the Easter holidays at the minute. But no, it's different, and it's got its challenges, but everything's all right at the minute, mate.
And what about, obviously sport has left a massive hole in most people's lives. Obviously you live and breathe it and are involved in it on a daily basis. What's happened with Sale? Obviously you're part of the ownership there and the management of it. Is it players still training? What do you do?
No. So initially the lad having a week off, and then as soon as the government sort of lockdown came in place, all the games were postponed for a minimum sort of 3 to 4 week basis. So at that point, the lads were just sent sort of on holiday. Most of them are still in the country because obviously attractions, etc. We've got a lot of South Africans at Sale, and a handful of them managed to get back home just prior to the travel restrictions. So they're sort of here, there, and everywhere at the moment, but they'll be staying fit. But as it currently stands, right here, right now, we don't actually know. We're waiting on communication from PRL, which is like the FA, on when games potentially are going to be started. We're still being told that the season will be played out. So the Premiership's the only level that hasn't been cancelled. But we're just constantly in communication, waiting direct from them. I think everyone's, like you say, us Sale Sharks, like any other club, has replayed fixtures, famous fixtures, winning the Premiership in 2006. We met on the website and on YouTube and across social media the other night, trying to give fans a fix. But I think everyone's just wait for live sport to be back up and running. But at the minute, we're not too sure when it's going to be.
Just sticking on Sale, obviously a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, the club was bought. It's got a very interesting, eclectic mix of owners who we've had a good laugh with already down the years since you've owned it. But what's it been like working with business people from outside of sport, like Jed Mason, Simon Orange, and obviously there's yourself and Dimes as well involved?
Yeah. It's been me, mate, in all honesty. I think any retiring sportsman always has that real sort of hurdle when they playing sport and they retire from playing, and a lot of players fall into either the two obvious ones are coaching or media, and has never been an interest for me. It's not even from day one when I turned pro. I never wanted to coach, and that hasn't even changed now at at 40. So the other option was maybe media, but I think being based in Manchester, it's difficult. An opportunity came up on the business side, and it was something that was of real interest. And I think the sort of the plan a little bit in that. I think it was just sort of 6 months after retiring Sale, I was working as a bit of an ambassador. The previous owners offered a role as an ambassador, which was a 2-day role, which I was doing. 6 months into that, Simon and Jed bought the business. It was just almost perfect timing for me. I'd known Jed for 15 years. He'd always been a big supporter of the club, helped me out. He sat on my board for my annual year. I didn't know Simon. Of him, famous brother to Jason. Obviously, he gets a lot of stick about, but for me, it's just been a really good learning curve. In terms of business, I think there's a lot of you hear all these cliches about the attributes that you have as a sportsman that can relate into business, and I think there are you need almost almost like a mentor, for want of a better phrase, and Simon and Jed and Dimes have all been really, really good with me. And it's been a steep learning curve, but it's one that I've really enjoyed. And like you say, the time and the effort and the investment that Simon and Jed are putting into the club has really formed it. We're well, before all the coronavirus situation, we were sat second in the league. We're in a final of a cup, so things were really starting to that investment and that time and effort off the field is really starting to show on the field. So it's exciting times, and hopefully when back to normal and we're back on the pitch and the boys are back playing, hopefully it won't be too long before we're back at the club.
Good. And just a few things about your good self. How did you end up getting into rugby? Did you not like football?
I wasn't good enough at football, mate. You lined up for that one, didn't you? I was born in Cumbria, not known for its football, so I was introduced to rugby early. My dad, county level for Cumbria, which was a really good standard. Played against some big names, some like guys like that. But then we moved away from Cumbria. Much lived in Cheshire since I was 10, and obviously we all know Cheshire's pretty football dominated. So I ended up playing football for the majority of my sort of school years. And back into rugby when I was about 17, 18.
That's pretty late, isn't it?
And yeah. I played a handful of games, probably between 8 and 17, 18 at school and bits and bobs like that. But the majority of the sport that I was playing was football. And again, there's a lot of crossover, and I was still watching rugby on TV. My old man would be watching the old Five Nations, and as it was back then, the Six Nations now. So I knew the game. So when I ended up getting back into rugby, I was a little bit raw, and again, it was a bit of a steep learning curve. But there's a lot of what makes whether it's speed, skill, fitness, all that sort of stuff. It transfers from one sport to the other. So I fell into rugby, and things went well pretty quick. I got invited to train. I got a school teacher at the time when I was 17 wrote a letter to Sale, and they invited me to train, and I've been involved with them ever since. So I played in their academy for two and a half years whilst I was at uni. Did a sports science degree at Manchester Met, and then coming out of uni, got offered a full-time contract at 21. So sort of bit their arm off at that. Even at 21, I had a 2-year contract. I was on 30 grand I thought I was absolutely loaded on 30
Not bad, is it?
Oh, it's rubbish compared to what they get now. I played every game that season and finished the top try scorer in the league. I was on 30 grand.
Well, I believe you scored quite a lot of tries, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that was ultimately my job. I was predominantly a winger, played 99% of my rugby on the wing. I played a little bit at fullback, a little bit at 13 outside centre. But as a winger, I know you're a football man. Your equivalent is being a striker in football. You're there to finish off the tries and take the glory.
So out of all your tries, what was your best one?
I think it's a bit when people ask you about tries, it's a bit like when they ask you about your favourite game. I think you always remember your debuts. So I remember my debut for Sale. Again, I'd only been pro 3 months, if that. Been took on by Sale, played in the pre-season, did all right, scored a few tries in a few pre-season matches, and they threw me in on the wing. At the time, Steve Hanley, who had been cap for England, he was on one wing. There was a guy called Matt Moore on the other wing who I don't think he got capped, but Steve and Matt and Jason Robinson was a fullback for Sale. So those three were the three main men for Sale at the time, and they'd played a lot of rugby together. And I came in and moved Matt Moore out. So there was a bit of pressure, and we went down to Bristol, first game of the season, down to Bristol. The lads had a shocking year the year before. I think they finished second bottom in the league. And we went down to Bristol and we won the game, and I scored on my debut. And we went on that season to finish second in the league, and I was a top try scorer in the league that season. So I'll never forget that first day, that first game, that first try, I think.
Now, obviously you probably get asked this one a lot, but 2007.
Oh, come on.
I'm not a rugby man, and I've actually looked at this on the internet before giving you a call today, and it does actually, to me, look like it was a try.
Of course it was. It got, again, I think because everyone's struggling for live sport at the moment. Yeah. It got brought up on Twitter or Instagram or something the other day, and I ended up having a load of banter with some South Africans on Twitter. I still think it was a try. I'm biased. I'm going to say it was a try, but you get a gut instinct on. Speak to any winger, try scorer, any footballer, striker. You get a gut instinct when a goal's a goal or a try's a try, and I still swear that was a try, but it wasn't meant to be. People, what are we now? It's 2007, so it was 13 years ago, and the fact that people are still talking about it now is incredible, really. I think, which is a positive. It's a bit of an icebreaker. If I'm in the role that I'm in at the moment, and I'm going out into the city trying to pitch for new business for Sale, and I can be in a room and nobody will have heard of me maybe in a room of 100 people, but as soon as you mention England South Africa 2007 World Cup final and that guy that didn't score the try in the corner, and you say it was me, then suddenly everyone's like, oh my God, I watched that guy, I was in the pub, I was here, I was there. Well, from that point, you try and put a positive spin on anything negative in life. You try and put a positive spin on it.
Well,
so
there is a positive spin, because I remember when we were on a golf buggy on the golf course at Mere, and I said to you, "What do you reckon your life would be like if that try was given?" And your answer was, "Well, I wouldn't be sat on here with you now."
I wouldn't be sat on a buggy talking to you. I'd be on a desert island, probably smoking a fat cigar.
So at least we've got a bit of a chat with you out of it. But listen, I'll let you crack on. But thanks very much for coming on today, mate. I'll see you soon.
Top man, no worries. Thanks a lot, Will. Take care, mate.
Bye, mate.